All right, folks, welcome back. So this is day 3. This is Wednesday, right? And we are still on module 2, and we need to finish module 2 today. Okay, so this is where we are, right? So we'll finish module 2 today, and then from tomorrow onwards we'll start storage services. And usually this is what I find is we need more time for this module. So instead of taking 3 hours for module 3, we'll probably take 4 hours, right? So tomorrow and day after. We'll probably do module 3, all right, and then we'll do module 4, which is VPCs, virtual private cloud, on starting on Monday. All right, so you might want to read up on storage services, especially EBS, Elastic Block Store, and S3, Simple Storage Service. Okay. However, today, we'll have to finish module 2, and this is where we are looking at EC2 instances, especially the implementation side of EC2 instances, right? And the goal today is to show you how to install applications, how to deploy applications, and how to set up an end-to-end application on a single EC2 instance. All right, we'll talk about scalability, fault tolerance, etc. later in module 6, especially, right? Our focus today is to get something up and running on a single EC2 instance. All right, so what we've done so far is in this module, right, which we started yesterday, what we've done so far is we've looked at Amazon machine image armies, right? And we discussed how we can select an Ubuntu army or a Windows army or a Red Hat army, and also the armies can need not just be operating systems, right? They can be anything, the entire stack as well, right? Or maybe operating system plus a web server and a database server, right? So it can be any kind of combination of software that you would want to have on your server that you're launching. Okay, so Army is something we looked at. We also looked at security groups yesterday. These are firewalls which protect your instance, right? And we saw how to create rules which allow certain types of traffic into the server. All right. We also talked about key pairs, right? So key pairs especially are important for Linux instances, and this is nothing to do with AWS, right? We've been using key pairs with the Unix and Linux instances or servers for a long time, right? And these the key pair mechanism is superior to password-based authentication mechanisms, right? So it makes a lot of sense, and we saw yesterday how to connect to an EC2 instance using a private key. Right, so this is what we've done so far, and today what we'll do is we'll sort of do more demonstrations, more discussions, and I'm going to show you a Windows. Right, how do we launch a Windows instance? How do we connect to that? Next, I'm also going to show you how to set up a WordPress site on an EC2 instance, and this is going to be an end-to-end example, right? So we'll see how to from a domain name to the IP address of the instance, and we want to see WordPress running end-to-end, right? So that's the objective. Now, to make the application available via a domain name, we need to understand IP addresses, and we'll talk about 2 or 3 types, actually 3 types. One is elastic IP. This is a more permanent type of IP address allocated at an account level, and we'll talk about public IP, which is not very permanent. It can change under certain circumstances, right? And then there's a private IP, which, as the name suggests, is private to the AWS network, to the VPC, actually, right? And we'll understand these different types of IP addresses and also when to use which one. Okay, so this is the agenda for today. All right. Okay, and a couple of you have said that you need the link, so let me share the link with you once again, and And we'll use the same sheet. Let's use the same sheet for today. This is Mod 2 EC2. All right, so I've sent you the link. Let me know if you have any problems accessing the document. All right, so I think some of you may have had an opportunity to practice this, right? I hope you've created your AWS account and you've had a chance to look at EC2. Maybe you've launched an instance. Maybe you've tried to connect to it, right? That's what you should be doing. You have to practice these things, right? And based on your attempts yesterday, maybe you have some questions. So we'll discuss that, right? So we'll discuss these questions shortly. But before that, right? Let me talk a bit about some of the newer topics that we want to cover today, and also I'm going to show you some additional demonstrations, like I explained earlier, right? So let me come back to these questions a little later. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is maybe let me show you a Windows server. How do we launch a Windows server? How do we connect to a Windows server? Right. So let's do that because then we would have covered a Linux server and a Windows server. Right. After that, I'm going to talk a bit about PuTTY. Okay, because yesterday as well there were some questions around PuTTY. How do we connect to a Linux server using from a Windows client, right? So I'll talk about PuTTY a little bit as well, right? And then maybe we'll stop for some questions, and then I'm going to show you a demonstration around WordPress. Okay, so let's do it this way. First thing I'm going to talk about today is how do we launch a Windows instance. All right, so let's take a look at this. Okay, so from the home page, again, go into EC2 and remember, choose your region carefully, right? So this is I'm going to choose US East. This is a good one because this has the latest features, the latest services. All right. Now I'm going to launch an instance, right? Same thing as yesterday, but this time I want to choose a Windows Army, right? So last time we selected this one and Ubuntu Army. This time let's select this one. All right. There are multiple flavors. So there's Windows Server, and then there's Windows Server with containers, which is I guess Docker. Right, and there's a Windows Server with SQL Server as well. So you can pick what you like, but let me just go ahead and pick this one, Windows Server 2016. All right, we'll choose Micro as usual because this is available under the free tier. Okay, this screen, right? This tab, we leave it alone, right? This is let's keep this at the default values. We'll discuss these things a little later. All right, storage as well, right? We'll discuss in module 3. These are EBS volumes, and in this case, the root volume needs 30 GB. Okay, Windows is bigger, so I guess it needs a bit more size. For Linux instances, the default size is 8 GB. Here it is 30 GB. All right, and then we'll create a security group. Right, let's create a security group, and here let's give it a good name. So let's say my app Windows SG. Right, let's say this is the name of the security group. All right. And we need to specify the rules, right? So here we don't use SSH, right? We use the RDP protocol, right? We use the RDP protocol, and the default port for RDP is 3389, right? And here, like I explained yesterday, this is not a good idea, right? So having unrestricted access to your Windows server is a very bad idea. I think, in fact, AWS should change this, right? They should not have this as a default value. They should have this as a default value for SSH and RDP. Okay, so I'm going to restrict access to the RDP port. But let's say this is a web server. you can add a HTTP rule here. This is port 80, and for port 80, like we discussed yesterday, unrestricted access is fine, right? Assuming that this server is going to house a public website or public web application. Okay, all right. So that's it, right? That's the only difference. So what we've done here is we've selected a Windows Server army instead of a Ubuntu Linux army, right? Otherwise, most things are the same. The security group is a bit different as well. We're using RDP. We have an RDP rule rather than an SSH rule. Okay, so that's it. Now here as well. Normally with Windows servers, we don't use key pairs, right? But in AWS, you can add a key pair layer of security. Okay, so we'll see how this works. All right, so I'm going to use a key pair, the same key pair that we saw yesterday. I'm going to use this to connect to this Windows server, and we'll see how this works. Okay, we'll see how this works. Remember, it's a good idea, right? It's a good idea to have key pairs even with Windows servers. So let me launch this server, right? Let's launch this server, and let's see. This will come up soon, right? Just a few seconds is what it needs, and then we'll be able to connect. We'll be able to connect to this Windows machine. All right. Okay. Now here to connect to this Windows server, we need an RDP client, right? We need an RDP client. Now, if you use a Windows laptop or computer, right? So your machine, the client machine is a Windows machine. Then you'll have RDP pre-installed, right? So you'll have RDP installed already. You don't have to do much. Okay. However, this is a MacBook, and here what I have to do is from the Play Store, from the App Store, I have to find an app, right? This is the Microsoft Remote Desktop app, right? So this one here. So this I have to download and install from the App Store. Okay, so depending on what you use, you may have to take care of the RDP client. Okay, so this should be available on your machine. Okay, next to connect, what we do is we can go and from the actions say connect, all right, and when we do that, we can download a remote desktop file. All right, so this file is basically a configuration file. Okay, it's just a configuration file, so we can download it onto our machine. Okay, and then to connect to the server, all we have to do is click on this configuration file. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that. And let's see what happens. Okay, so I hope you're able to see this, right? We are initiating an RDP connection to a Windows server, right? And all right, so it didn't really connect. Let me try it again. All right, so that's a bit strange. All right, let's try one more time. Maybe it was not up yet. Let's try one more time. All right, so I don't know. I'm not sure, right? Yeah, it could be. One of you saying it could be starting up. So yeah, maybe it is. So let's wait a bit longer, right? Or it could be a firewall type of issue as well. So let's see. Let me try it one more time. Okay, so I think now it's fine, right? Looks like it is fine now. Yeah. So now we are good, and now hopefully it'll connect, and it'll then prompt us for the administrator password. All right. So let's wait for this. any moment now, we should see a login box. All right, so here we are, right? So this is the login box here, but the problem is, what's the password, right? So we don't know the password yet. So let me go back here. Let me go back here. In fact, let me just close this for the moment, right? And now we need to get the password. So we are able to connect to the server, but we don't have the password yet, right? So what you can do is, if you go back to from the actions, go back to connect. Right, you'll find there's a get password button here, right? So you can just click on the get password button, and sometimes you'll see this message. Basically, it takes about 4 minutes. It takes about 4 minutes for the password to become available, right? And this is because what's happening is the password is encrypted using the key pair, right? And I guess there's some reason for that to take a bit of time. So we just have to wait for a bit and then try again. Okay, so let's try again. All right, so we'll just try again. And what will happen? What will happen then? Once this becomes available, is we'll have to specify a private key, right? So the private key is then once we supply the private key, the password is decrypted and displayed to us. Okay, so this is how we're using a key pair with Windows servers as well, right? So we don't use it. We're using the private key indirectly, right? We're using it indirectly. We're using it to decrypt the Windows server's administrator password. Okay, so all right, let me try this again. Okay, so here it is, right? So now it's ready, and what we need to do is specify the private key file, right? So the private key file that we selected during the launch of the server is what we need to specify here. Okay, so I'm just going to say choose file, and let me try and find this. Okay, so here it is, right? So this is the private key file, and this is the private key actually, right? This is what it looks like, and now that we have this, let's click on this button, decrypt password. Okay, so here's the password, right? Here's the password. Right. So let me just copy this here, and now let's try and make a connection once again, right? And in fact, it's easier if you can just edit the connection here and specify the password here. So this is easier because sometimes the copy and paste doesn't work on the login box. All right. So I'm just going to edit this here and paste the password here. Okay, from here. Now let me double click this, and let's see if we are able to get into the server. All right, so I think we are through, right? We are through, and we should now see the Windows Server desktop very, very shortly. Okay. Now this might appear to be a little bit slow because first of all, it's a GUI, right? It's a graphical user interface. So from a network point of view, this might take a bit of time, and also the Windows in general, I think needs more memory, right? Needs more memory, and we're using a micro server. So that may be another reason for this to be a bit slow. Okay, but nevertheless, we should see the desktop pretty soon, and here it is. Right, this is the Windows Server desktop. Okay, so you can then sort of use the server in the usual manner, right? So if you click on the start button, you can see stuff like server management, Windows administration, PowerShell, and so on. Right. So those of you who are familiar with the Windows servers, you'll find this the usual stuff here, right? So you can then proceed with using the server in the usual manner. All right. Okay. Okay. So that's it. I just wanted to show you how to launch a Windows server, and also how to connect to the Windows server. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So some of you are sending me questions, right? So Rakesh, if you can just type your question in the shared document. All right. So please do that so that others can see your question and then I don't miss it. Okay. So please try and add it to the sheet. If you don't have the link to the sheet, please let me know. All right. Okay. So that's one job done, right? So we've looked at this now. Okay. All right. Now, next thing I wanted to talk about is connecting to a Linux server. Right. This is a Windows server, and we've used RDP to connect to it. Right. But yesterday we saw a Linux server. Right. And the question was, how do we connect to a Linux server from a Windows client? Right. And we said yesterday that for a Windows client, you need a software called PuTTY. Right. So what you can do is you can just search for PuTTY EC2, right, and you'll find enough information, tutorials, and so on, right? So there's enough help available. For example, this is a guide from AWS itself, and it explains how you can use PuTTY to connect to a Linux server. Right now, I can't show you this because I don't have a Windows machine. Okay, but let's take a look at some of the screens here, right? Some of the images here. Okay, so the first step that you have to do is you have to download PuTTY, right? So first thing to do is to download PuTTY. So you can find this. This is the homepage of the software, right? And you can click on this link here and download the software. Okay, and then just I guess there'll be some installation steps. You can go ahead and do that. That should be simple enough. Okay. Once you've done that, we have to do two steps. Okay. The first step is where you convert the private key, the .pem file that you download, right? When you're launching the instance, you create a private key or and download the .pem file onto your machine, right? But the .pem file is not compatible with PuTTY. So you have to convert the .pem file to a .ppk file. All right. So the .pem, this one has to be converted to .ppk. This one. Okay. And you can do that using a tool that is available with the PuTTY software, and the tool is called PuTTyGen. Okay. So you'll find it. You'll find PuTTyGen easily, and then use that. You have to specify the PEM file, right, where the PEM file is. And then it will create a PPK file which you can save on your desktop at some location. Okay, so this is one step. It's a one-time thing, right? It's a one-time thing that you have to do, and you should create a PPK file first. Okay. Now, once you have the PPK file, you can initiate a session, right? You can start a session, and the session will be very similar. Just the form, the look. The UI is different, but the way you connect to a server is the same, right? And what you need is the same three things. Okay, we need the same three things that we saw yesterday. For example, yesterday I think we saw something like this, right? Where you have the private key. In this case, you'll be using the PPK file. Then you have the username, right? And then you have the public IP address. Okay, so three things are required to connect to the server. And even using PuTTY, you need the same three things, okay? Because the protocol is the same. It's just the UI that is different. Okay. So here you can see we have in this screen. This is the PuTTY main screen, the main page, the main screen of the software, and you specify the user, right? In this case, the user is EC2-user. This is usually the default user for Red Hat. Red Hat and Amazon Army, Amazon Linux as well, right? So it depends on the Army, depends on the operating system that you select, right? So the username will be different. The default username will be different based on the OS. So EC2-user will be for Red Hat and the Amazon Army, right? And we use Ubuntu for Ubuntu armies. Okay, so please bear that in mind. I've seen people get frustrated around this issue. Okay, so this is the username, right? And then @ the public IP address. right? So the public IP address, or you can also use the public DNS name. Normally, you'll find both the DNS name or the IP address. They're both available in the EC2's detail pane, right? And you can use either, right? You can use either the DNS name or the IP address. Okay, so we have two of the three things, right? So the username has been specified, and then at the rate, the IP address, public IP address has been specified, right? Now we need three things, remember. So where's the third thing? So the third thing is the private key, and you have to set that up one time using one of the other pages here. So you go into SSH, right? This one here, and then go into auth, and then in this page use the browse button and specify the path to the PPK file which you created in the previous step. Okay, so if you do this and then you just have to say open, and it should connect. Okay, it should connect. You can only do a few things wrong here, right? And also, if you're not able to connect right away, don't get disheartened, right? Most people go through this problem, right? There's a little bit of a learning curve here. Don't get frustrated, right? Don't worry. Most people go through this. You just have to get a few things right. So make sure, for example, don't forget to convert the PEM file to PPK, right? Don't forget to use the right username. Okay, don't forget to use the public IP address, not the private IP address. So just a few things you have to get right, and you should be able to connect. Okay, now when you connect, if you're not able to connect, maybe you don't get any response, right? If you don't get any response, then it's possible that your firewall, the security group, is blocking your requests, right? So I would go and look at the rules of the security group, right? Make sure that your IP address is allowed to connect. Okay, so that's one place where for troubleshooting, right? Look at your security group. That's normally a problem. Now, if you do get a response back, and it's an error, right? It could be some error. Maybe it says the key is wrong, or the could not connect, or something like that. So at least you're getting a response back, which means the firewall is fine, right? And you probably made a mistake with the username, right? Or you made a mistake with the private key. Okay, so this is how you can troubleshoot. Expect some problems, but I think you'll be able to find your way through it. Okay, so that's the second thing I wanted to talk to you about. All right, and now let's do a little more Q&A because maybe some of you have problems around connections, right? So let's talk about this, and then I'm going to talk about the next demonstration, which is installing WordPress. Okay, all right. So let me come back to this question. Let's focus on EC2. All right, let's focus on EC2. So Shyam, what does my IP address indicate? The connecting machine's IP address. Yes, exactly, right, exactly. So yeah, so it's not it's the public IP address of your connecting machine, right? So that public IP is normally from your ISP side, right? So more specifically, yes, right, it is the connecting IP's connecting machine's IP, but more specifically, right, it is the public IP. Okay, it's the public IP address issued to you by your ISP. Okay, and this can change. This IP address can change from time to time, right? They usually have a lease time. Okay, when the ISP gives you an IP address, it has a lease time. So once the lease expires, the IP address will change. Okay, so it's very important to know that the IP address can change. The IP address can change when the DHCP lease expires. Okay, or if you do things like restarting your router or modem, okay, even then the IP address may change. Okay, but yes, it is the IP address, the public IP address of your connecting machine. Yes. Now you can also have an IP address range here, right? So you can also, I mean, basically in the source IP field, right? In the SG is the security group. SG's source IP field, you can specify an IP range. Okay. Now this is useful, especially if you want to connect from your corporate network, right? So you may have a range of IP addresses, and then you have to speak to your ISP, your internet service provider, to get that range. And you can also get static IP ranges, right? Static IP addresses, or a range of static IP addresses, so that you don't have to keep changing your firewall rules. Okay. So that's another important point. Ideally, right? These IPs are static, so you don't have to, so you don't need to keep changing your SG rules. Okay, but static IPs are probably expensive. Okay, because these are very scarce, so the ISP may charge you some amount for those static IPs. Okay, next question above. If I move my laptop from office to home, do I need to add a second IP address? Yes, of course. Okay, because the IP address does not, it's not attached to your laptop, right? It's issued by your ISP. So the IP is issued, rather the public IP is issued to you by your ISP, right? And your home ISP may be different, right? Home ISP may be different from your work ISP. Okay, even if they are same, it's likely that your IP addresses will be different. Okay, Shyam, can we have multiple key pairs added for one instance? Yes, of course. Okay, but remember, it's not about instances. Okay, it is not about an instance. Okay, a key pair is associated with an operating system user. Okay, so the question should be, can I add multiple users to the operating system? And the answer is yes. Okay, so of course you can add multiple users to the OS, right? And therefore multiple key pairs. Okay, this we discussed a bit yesterday as well, right? So this is nothing to do with AWS once again, right? This is standard operating system behavior. You should have multiple users on the OS, and then for each user, you must have a key pair. All right. Okay. So I guess I'll skip this one. I'm guessing that you don't want to look at this. So let me go to the next one. LT, can we change key pair on both end? If yes, how? No, but tell me about what you want to do, right? What's the use case? I know I can understand what you're saying, but it'll be better if you explain why, right? Why do you want to change the key pair? What is the problem you have in mind? So just explain that. Let me come back to your question. Okay, next question, Babita, after launching the instance and connection is successful, can I change the key pair? Yeah, so like we said yesterday, right? We had a brief discussion on this. So normally, your initial connection, your first connection, right, is done using the default user, right, which is say Ubuntu, right, and the key pair, and this user's key pair. All right, and then after this, you need to do the usual user administration, right? Which means create user accounts on the OS, and for each user create a key pair, right? So this could be, whoever needs to access. In your team, you may have 10 people, right, who need to connect to the server. So you need to create 10 user accounts, and for each user, you need to create a key pair. Okay, this is standard user administration, Linux or Windows. right? Nothing to do with AWS. Okay, and then you can delete the default user, which is Ubuntu in this case, right after that. Okay, this is how it's done. The default user is only to give you an initial connection to the server. After that, you have to manage the server as usual. Okay, the other part of the question is, can the change be done for the same user? Yes, it can be done, but again, tell me what you're thinking, right? If you tell me why you're thinking this, why you want this, maybe we'll have a better discussion, right? But yes, it can be done for the same user, but let's talk about why. Okay, Gajendra, we can connect it other way around, open the RDP and copy the public DNS. Yeah, I think so. Yes. So, yes, I think so. I'm not a Windows person, right? So I'm not tried this, but I think so. As long as you specify all the details required for the RDP connection, right, it should not be a problem, right? So the important thing, of course, is to specify all the information required for the RDP connection. All right, Rao, once the okay, so let me go back to these questions here. So LT, can we change the key pair on both ends? If yes, how? If by mistake I have shared the key pair with many users and would like to change it to better secure, yeah, you can do that. Yes. So yes, you can do it. Okay, you can do it. And let's see. Maybe if you have time, I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, so maybe we'll do a demonstration of how to create a user on the OS and how to install a key pair, right? How to install or change a key pair. Okay, so we'll have to show it to you. This will take a bit of time, but let's see. Let's see if we can find time. Okay, and Babita, your use case is if you deleted the key, and if you remove the key for a user, right? The user has accidentally lost the key. Can we change the key pair? Yes, you can. Okay, so you can change the key pair quite easily, provided you have access to the server, right? Someone should have access to the server. So let's say you have a server administrator, right? And then you are one of the users. So you lose the key. So the server administrator can easily go and create the key for you, right? So someone should have access, okay, to the server. Otherwise, who's going to change the key pair, right? So you can change the key pair quite easily, provided someone, right, usually the user admin, right, has access to the server. Okay, if you're the only user and you lose your private key, then there's no help, right? Nobody can help you. You're out of the server. Okay, all right. Yeah, okay, so this worked for you. All right, so next question, Rao, once the Windows server is once the server is established, if I want to install Office software, what will be the license implications? How does it work? Yeah, so yes, so this is an important question, right? It's a very important question. What about software licensing, right? And especially, what about licenses that you may already have? Okay, so software licenses, very important topic. Okay, so there are two options. One is your army, right, has the software. Let's say you find an army. I'm not sure, but maybe you'll find an army with Office already installed. Okay, so your army has the software, and let's make it commercial software, right? So example, Office, MS Office, right, or maybe Oracle database, right? So this kind of software, your army has it. Okay, so you find an army which has Oracle or MS Office. So then the hourly price will include the cost of software licenses. Okay, so this is one option. The second option is you install. So you have the software licenses already, and you install the software on the EC2 instance. Right? This should be fine. This should be fine because maybe you have the licenses for based on on a server basis, right? So you're allowed as per your license terms to install the software on any server, right? And EC2 instance is like any other server, so you should be able to install that software on an EC2 instance. Okay, so that's not a problem. If you have any doubts, you can speak to them and make sure, right? The third option is what is called bring your own licenses, BYOL, right? So here you can transfer your existing licenses to AWS. Okay, so you have to speak to AWS and see how that works out. But they support this quite easily for most of the world's popular software. Okay, so the third option protects your existing investments, right? Let's say you bought Oracle licenses and now you're moving to the cloud. It would not be fair on you, right, for you to lose that investment, right, and to have to pay again for the licenses, right? So you can transfer your existing licenses to AWS. All right, okay. So these are the options. All right, Valen, in Linux by default, root user account, what's the password? Yeah, so by default there's no password, right? No password. By default there's no password. That's what I think you're saying, right? So it is logging in without the password. Yeah, so there's no password. Okay, there's no password. So the reason there's no password is because we use SSH key pairs, right, which is superior to passwords. Okay, this is much better. This is much better than passwords. So the configuration of the server is such that there's no password required. Okay, you can configure a server to require a password. Okay, this you have to go into the server configuration and say yes, password is required. Okay, that you can do that, but by default, right? By default, there's no password. Okay. All right. Okay. Now reading the rest of your post here. So yeah, password is, it's not asking for the password because you have to, in the server configuration, you have to say that password is required. Okay. So so without this, right, without configuring the server to require a password, without this, right, it will not ask for a password. Okay. So these are Linux questions, by the way, right? Nothing to do with AWS. Okay. You can read about where in Red Hat you can go and change the server configuration to require a password, right? So that's one. The second, the other issue that you mentioned is if you're trying to log in with a root IP address, it's showing use the EC2 user account. Yeah, that's because you don't have a SSH key pair, maybe. Okay, so you can't log in. You can't log in with the root user because again, server configuration is such, right? Server configuration is such. You also don't have the key pair for the root user. All right. So this is a server configuration issue. All right. It's a server configuration issue. Nothing to do with AWS. This is how all Linux servers, or in this case Red Hat, right? I think you're using Red Hat. So this is how it will work even outside of AWS. Okay, it's a server configuration issue. You should look up the Linux documentation around this. Okay. Also, one more point, right? Don't log in with root. This is not to be done. Okay, it's not a good practice to log in with root. You should log in with some other user, and then you should use sudo normally. Okay, that's a good practice. All right. Next question, Rao. If I generate a key pair with my own tools, does it work, or do we need to use AWS UI provided key pair tool? No. You can generate your own key pair. All right, no problem. It's just a server. It's like any other an EC2 instance is like any other server. All right, and AWS will support all existing tools. Why would they try to create proprietary tools which create a barrier for you, right? So they will support all standard tools, whatever is popular. They will not mess around with that, right? So it's like any other server. It's not a problem. All right. Next question, Waylon, can I give private IP address for accessing my machine? No, where, which field, right? Which field? Let me know which field you're talking about, because so I mean, maybe you mean the source IP, right? Maybe you mean the source IP. So let me know. Let me come back to this question. Next question is Rakesh. While connecting through PuTTY, the IP with my IP address is not connecting. I try when I select the option anywhere. Yeah, so here your source IP, right? Your my IP, something is wrong with this, right? So yeah, that's a bit strange. So did you select my IP? Did you yeah, that's a bit strange if it is connecting from anywhere but not from your IP address. So that's it's somehow picking up the wrong IP. Did you enter the my IP, or was it picked up automatically? So did you enter the IP address manually? Right. Let me know about this one because maybe you made an error there, right? If you entered it manually, maybe you've made some mistake there, right? Also, what if you did? What was the network mask? Right. So this kind of question is what I would have. Also, compare that IP with you can Google with Google's answer to what is my IP. All right. So if you write what is my IP like this, okay, if you say what is my IP, right, on Google, you'll get your public IP address at that point, right, like this one. This is my public IP address at this point, and when you enter this, you should say this IP address /32, okay, /32. That's how you should specify the IP address. So just compare that, right? I'm not sure. It's strange. It is strange because if it is picking it up manually, it should pick it up correctly, right? And I would think maybe there's a firewall on your side, but then you're saying it is connecting when you say anywhere. So that's a little bit strange. Okay, so make sure that you have a network mask of /32, right? So it could be, it should be something like this. Okay, so you get your IP address, and then it should be something like /32. Okay, this should be your source IP address. All right. Okay. Subani, how can I trust an army is secure? If you choose an army provided by a third party, is it secure? All the armies are tested by users in the marketplace. Yeah, and when you say not secure, what do you mean, right? That's important. So what do you mean by not secure? So let's understand this. It's not very clear. Let's understand this, and we'll come back to this question. Okay. All right. This question: can I give a private IP for addressing my access to my machine? No. So the source IP address, right? In your SG, the source IP cannot be your private IP, your home network or corporate network's private IP. Right? It cannot be, because nobody knows about this, right? Look, the private IP is internal to your network, right? The internet does not understand your private IP. Okay, so the SG right? The SG does not recognize your private IP. Okay, it in your requests, let's say SSH requests, the SG will see your public IP address, right? It doesn't even see your private IP address. It has no way of knowing about it. Okay, so remember the way it is working is you're making a request to the server, right? And when your request comes in, along with your request, the public IP, your public IP address is being sent, right? So that it will know. It won't know your private IP address. All right. Okay. Okay. Next question. Considering all the above queries on user account, any at the earliest, I have a new user created. Do a key pair. Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I think you're right. So we'll do that. We'll do that. Okay. Uh, okay. Can you share the link to the document? So here's the link. Okay. All right. And one more question. So Gajendra, web platform installer. Web platform installer on the prereqs page, select MySQL. So where are you seeing this? I think you're seeing this in one of the labs, right? This is a Windows Labs. This is a Windows Labs. Let me know. Looks like Windows Labs. Okay. Yeah. So that's that's a problem with the labs are fine actually, right? And it looks like it's a problem with the army, right? It looks like a problem with the Windows Army. Okay, so you can maybe try another army, try another Windows Army, right? Maybe that will help. And if it doesn't, just try to support. We'll see what we can do. Okay, all right. Now what like you say, right? Let's see how to create a user account and all that. So okay, let's I think we'll find time for it. But let me just finish one more thing, right? Let me finish one more thing so that we can ensure that we cover the agenda, right? And so this is what I wanted to show you, right? So this is deploying a WordPress blog on a Linux instance, right? And here, what we want to do is set up a real application, right? So we want to set up a real application, a full application. This includes a database, right? So it has a web server, it has a MySQL database, right? And then we deploy an application, right? And then we also want to point a domain, okay, a domain name to this server so that we see the whole application running end to end. Okay, so that's the goal here. And that's what you should practice, right? After this module, you should practice this, and you can use WordPress or preferably your own application, right? So can you install your own application on an EC2 instance, right, and make it work end to end, right? So that'll be a very good exercise. And once you know EC2, right, you're well on your way to learning AWS. Okay, EC2 is the most important service, the most widely used service, and this will be a big first step. Right. So for that reason, we're trying to ensure that you know how to set up an application end to end. Right. So let's do this. And then we'll try and also set up an account on the operating system. Okay. So here, what I'm going to do is this is a longish process, right? And I'm going to use some web tutorials. For example, if I search for AWS, WordPress, EC2, something like this. Right, so yeah, maybe I can use this, and also I'll probably use another tutorial as well, because this is it looks like it's for Amazon Linux. I'm going to be using Ubuntu, so I'll combine a couple of tutorials and install this software. Okay, but before we do this tutorial, we need to set up an EC2 instance, right? So so this Windows server I don't need anymore. Okay, so I'm going to terminate this. All right, this is also important. You should learn how to terminate. It's very important. This is the only way in which you can control your costs, right? So make sure that you clean up, you terminate resources that you're not using anymore, right? So I'm going to make sure that this server is gone, right? That's it, it's gone. I'll not be billed for this anymore, okay? In the meantime, let's go and start a new instance, right? And this is going to be an Ubuntu server, okay? So Ubuntu T2 micro, all right, and the security group, we can use the same one that we used yesterday, right? So we had this one set up yesterday, right? Or maybe this one here. So I'm going to use the same security group that we set up yesterday, right? So let's do that, and now I'm going to launch this EC2 instance, okay? And this time, right? Last time I showed you how to connect using an existing key pair. This time I'm going to create a new key pair. All right, so let me call this my key pair, and let's say let me give this a date here, 26 April, right? So this is the key pair. It's a new key pair. So I'm going to create this, and let me download this first of all, right? So when I download this, I will download the private key, right? The private key. The public key will be installed automatically on the server. All right. Now remember, the private key is not stored on the server. So if you lose this private key, you lose access to this server. All right. And there's no backdoor. There's no way you can get in. Okay. So that's how it works. All right. So let me launch this server. All right. So the server is coming up, right? The server is coming up, and now, you know, we need to connect to it and then start our installation process, right? So we need to install WordPress. So we need to start that process. So first, let's connect. So, you know, let me copy the public IP address. You can also use the public DNS, right? Doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So it's better. I like to use the IP address because it's shorter, and you probably skip one step, right? Because the DNS has to be resolved to an IP address. So I'm going to use the IP address, public IP address, and let's do an SSH, right? Let's do an SSH. Okay. First of all, let me copy this key file. Let me copy this. This is in the downloads folder, so I'm going to just copy it here. All right, so I'm going to copy it to my current directory, and then I will connect to this. Okay, SSH-I, private key. The user is Ubuntu, and @ public IP address. All right. Okay. So when you do that, it says, I mean, it hasn't connected, right? It hasn't connected, and it says something. You know, this is there's like a big warning here: unprotected private key file, right? And then it says permission 644 are too open. You know, it doesn't like it, and it says permission denied. Okay. So this is you know, basically it's what the server is saying is, look, you better secure your private key file first, and then I'll let you connect. Okay, so it's a good thing. It's a good thing. So what we need to do here is, you know, we need to set the permissions to something restricted. So 600 is a good permission. Okay, so let me do that. All right, so now we have basically hidden this file from other users of the laptop, right? So if this computer is used by other people, other users, they will not be able to see this file, and they'll not be able to use this file, right? So that's why we secure this private key. All right, so now that it's secure, let's try and connect again, right? Let's try and connect again, and let's see. Okay, so that's done, right? So this is the Ubuntu server here. All right, let me clear, right? Let me clear this. And now I want to install WordPress. Okay, so let me open up this tutorial. I'm not very familiar with WordPress, but I'll try and follow. This to some extent, right? So it looks like to install WordPress, first of all, you need to have PHP. You need to have MySQL as well, right? And also, I think you know, I think I made a mistake here. This is okay. This is a newer Ubuntu version, right? So usually, you know, I like to use an older version. Let me create another server. I think I made a mistake here. So I'm going to use an older server, all right, because I know that the tutorials, right, are they work well on the older operating systems. Okay, so so what I want to do is I want to look for 14.04 Ubuntu. Right, this is better because the tutorials are more mature. Okay, so I'm going to use an older version, not the new version. Let me do this again. All right, so let's do this again. My apologies, and we'll choose the same security group, and we'll now launch. All right, so let me now use the same key pair. Maybe this key pair, right, that we just created. All right, and let's launch this server. So I'm going to use this server, not the other one. All right, so let me connect again. This is a new server. Let me exit this one. I don't want this. All right, and now I'm going to connect to this new server. All right, so this is an older version of Ubuntu, right? And now we can follow the tutorial. So the tutorial basically says first you need to have MySQL, and you need to have Apache, you need to have PHP as well, right? So let's install that first, right? Let's install these things first, and then we'll proceed with installing WordPress. Okay, so first the prerequisites: installing some of the major components. All right, so here we are, right? So this is our Ubuntu server. Okay, this is our Ubuntu server, and now we are ready. Now we are ready to install WordPress. Okay, so first step is to install the prerequisites, right? So what I'm going to do is use the package manager and do an update first, like we discussed yesterday. This is to get the latest information on the software available in the online repositories, right? So let me do an update. All right, now we can install, right? So we can install using apt-get install, right? This is the command, and we need Apache. This is the web server, right? Then maybe we need PHP 5. Okay, this is for WordPress, and then we can also install MySQL server, right? So we can do it one by one. I think it's better if you do it one by one. You can also do it together, but let's go one by one. So this is Apache web server. All right, that's done. Okay, that's done. Next, we install PHP 5. Right, let's install PHP 5. All right, and this will take a bit of time. And then next, we'll install MySQL server. All right, so now the third major component, right, that is a prerequisite, is the MySQL server. Right? So let's install this, and as part of the installation, you need to specify the the MySQL root user's password. Right? So let's say I'm going to specify a password here. Okay, so the password has been specified, and now the installation should finish. Okay, so these are the prerequisites for WordPress, right? So you need this is a PHP application, a LAMP application, right? So we need to have Apache, we need to have PHP and MySQL server. So all of that is done. Okay, now that's done. Now we turn to installing the WordPress application. right? And this has a few parts here, right? So one is you have to download and unzip the WordPress. You basically download the WordPress application itself, right? And then unpack it, and that's first step, right? The next step is to create a MySQL user and database for the WordPress application, right? So MySQL server has been installed. Now in that MySQL server, we need to have a user, a database user, and a database, right, for the WordPress application. So that's the second step that we will do. Okay. The third step that we will do is we will configure the WordPress application, right? So in the configuration, we need to do things like specify the database user, the database itself, right? So we have to configure the WordPress application, right? And then the final step is to basically move the WordPress application, the PHP files under the into the Apache document root, right? So that the web server works with the PHP application. Okay, so these are three or four steps that we need to accomplish. Okay, so let's do this one by one. First step is simple. It's basically we have to download and unpack the WordPress installation package, right? So we use this command wget on Linux. This is basically to download, copy the file from a web location, right? So that's it, right? Now we have it. We have the WordPress tar file, right? Tar file is available. Okay. Now we untar it, basically unpack it using this command. That's done, right? And if you see, there's a WordPress folder here. We can go into this, right? We can go into this, and if you look at the files, these are the WordPress PHP application files. All right, okay. So simple. This is simple. We now have WordPress application downloaded, unpacked, and ready on our server. So the first step is complete. Okay. The next step is to create a MySQL user and database for your WordPress application, right? So this is basically a database and user which your WordPress application will use to create your records, users, blog posts, and stuff like that, right? So we need a database for WordPress. That's what we're doing here. So let me connect, right? Let's connect to the server, MySQL server. So let me clear this. And let's connect to the MySQL server. This is the password that you had entered when installing MySQL server, right? So this is the MySQL prompt now. Now we are connected, and now we can run our MySQL commands. All right. So the first thing we do is create a user, right, and a password for that user. Okay. This is the WordPress user, MySQL user for WordPress, right? Done. That's done. Next, we create a database called WordPress DB. So that's done. All right. Then we grant privileges, which means we give the permissions to the WordPress user on this database, right? On this database. So this user has all the permissions. The WordPress user has all the permissions on the WordPress database, right? And not on any other database, because MySQL server can have many databases, many users. So this user has access, has privileges only on the WordPress database, right? That's it. That's it. And finally, we flush. Flush is basically to sort of reload your cache data, and then you can exit, right? So you exit out of MySQL and back to your Ubuntu server. All right. Okay. So second step is done. Now, by the way, if you are not familiar with Linux, if you're finding these commands a little too new, right? Don't worry, right? Don't worry. You have to get the big picture here, because this is a system admin type of activities, right? Which you may not do on a regular basis. So don't worry so much about these commands, and if they're not familiar to you, right? If you're familiar with Windows, you can try and see how to install WordPress on Windows, right? It doesn't matter. These are Linux sort of commands. We are not here to learn Linux, right? But I just wanted to in this demonstration show you all the commands so that you have a clear picture of how EC2 instances can be used for your applications. All right. If you're not following this fully, don't worry. It's not too important. All right. So now we have completed the second step as well, right? And the second step was to create a MySQL user and database for your WordPress installation. All right. So that's done. Now, the third step is to configure your WordPress application configuration, right? And here we have to specify things like, what database, what user, right? So the stuff that we did in the previous step has to be used in this step. Okay. So first we'll create a configuration file from a sample, right? So let me clear this, and here we're just creating a configuration file from a sample. Then we can open this configuration file, right? And I use the VI editor. VI is a editor program, right? So this is your configuration file, and here you can see, we have to sort of change all these things. What's the database, what's the user, and so on. So here, first thing to do is to specify the database. All right, and our database is something we created earlier, right? This one. Let me paste this here. All right. Next, we specify the username. Let me just copy the whole thing here. Right. This is the username. All right. Next is the password. Let me copy this thing. All right. So now we have set up our database name, the username, and the password. Right. Okay. Next, we need to specify this stuff here. This is basically some security related things, right? So PHP, in the past had a bad reputation for security, right? So in the case of WordPress, they've taken some steps to improve that, and you have to specify various salts and keys to improve the security, right? So what you can do is you don't have to do all this. It's basically go to this page, right? And this page will generate all this for you. Just copy this, right? And you can remove all this, right? Remove all this and paste what you found in that page, right? Okay. So that's it. That's it. So now we have configured the WordPress configuration file, right? So so that's it. This is done. All right. Now the final step is to basically move the WordPress installation to the Apache document root. Right now here, this tutorial breaks down to some extent because it's for Amazon Linux. So I'm going to find another one specifically for Ubuntu, and there's a good one from DigitalOcean, right? And especially for my version. All right, so this one is a good one. So I'm going to use this this tutorial for the last step, right? And the last step is basically to move the WordPress application to the Apache root, right? And what they do is they basically use rsync, right? They use this one, this command, and rsync is a command which synchronizes two folders, right? So I'm going to say rsync. Yeah, so basically this was the command rsync, right? And it copies all the files in the WordPress folder into this folder, right? Var www html. This is Apache's Apache web server's root document root. All right. So all this is done. Okay, all this is done, and now we need to test, right? We need to test our WordPress installation. Okay, so let's do that. So what we can do is we can basically use the IP address, public IP address, and try to go to the server. All right. So now you're not seeing the WordPress site, but you're seeing the Apache default page, right? And that's because you have to maybe go to the index.php page, right? This is the WordPress page, right? So this is the WordPress homepage, and you can now see that it seems to have worked to some extent, right? It says it seems to come back with a message, and it says your PHP installation appears to be missing the MySQL extension required by WordPress. Right, so something has gone wrong. So let's troubleshoot. Right, this is what you need to do when you're doing these kinds of things. Right, so let's just do a Google on this. All right, and usually, the first answer is usually right. Okay, so let me click on this, and I think we're missing a package, right? We're missing a package, and this one is the package presumably, right? Let's try. So let me install this package. Something to do with PHP 5 and MySQL. Right? Let's install this package, and that's done. All right, that's done. Now it's a good idea to restart Apache. Okay, it's a good idea to restart Apache. All right, now let's test. Let's test once again. Okay, that's it, right? It looks like it has worked. It looks like it has worked. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let's give it a name. So my WordPress, let's say this is the administrator. Okay, this is the password. Let's give it our provide your email address, the administrator's email address, and we install WordPress. All right. Okay. So that's it. We're done. We're done. All right. Now, what will happen is you can go to the index.php page, right? And this is your home page now. All right. So I think what we need to do is there's one more step that we can do to make it better. Right? What we need to do is Apache is using the HTML page as the default, right? So we'll change the Apache configuration. All right. So let's look at the Apache configuration, and here we'll add a directive to say that please use the PHP file as the home page, right? So this is required in the Apache configuration, all right? And now we can restart. Let's hope this will be better. All right, so now you can see your WordPress site. Okay, so that's it. This is the WordPress installation. Now we also need to map a domain name to this IP address, right? So that we have a proper WordPress site, right? So we'll do that. Next. Let me share this IP address with you so you can test it out a bit. You can go to this using your browser, right, and try and see what you see. Basically, you should see this WordPress site. All right. Okay. Now, one more piece, right, that's missing is how do we get a domain name here, right? How do we get a domain name here? Okay. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use another service, right? I'm going to use another service, and this is Route 53. Okay, Route 53 is something that we'll talk about later in another module as well. But for now, let's just use this for creating a mapping between a domain and this server, right? So let's. This is a DNS service, right? We'll talk about it more later. For now, let's do something simple, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a domain. These are domains I have. These are my personal domains, which I'm just using for explaining Route 53 to you, right? So don't worry about what these are. Just assume these are dummy domains. Okay. Now, if you go into domain, what you have to do is you have to create a record set, right? A record set, and for example, here you may say my WordPress site dot or something like this, my WP, okay, site dot yourdomain.com, right? Let's say this is a domain that you own, that you have registered, and you can then point this domain to the public IP address, right? Without the HTTP or anything, right? Just the IP address. And once you do that, Okay, once this record set is created, you can then go and type the domain, right? So you can type this domain, and hopefully, right, some of you will see this. In my case, there's usually a caching issue because I keep using this domain. But try and go to this domain, and you should see the WordPress site that we just created. All right. So try this. Some of you may see it earlier than others because DNS record sometimes can take a while. So you should see the WordPress site that we were looking at earlier. All right. Okay. So let me know. I mean, if nobody's seeing this, then yeah. So I think some of you are saying it's working, right? So in my case, what happens is, I keep doing this demonstration. So sometimes the wrong IP address is cached, right? So it's a caching issue. But in my browser as well, it should show up in a short while. All right. Okay. So that's it, right? That's it. Now we are seeing. We've completed this demonstration, and we've seen end-to-end, right? We've seen end-to-end how to deploy an application, and then also how to point a domain name to the server, right? And we've seen a application end-to-end. Okay, all right. However, this this site, there's a problem with this site, right? And that has to do with IP addressing. All right, that has to do with IP addressing. So let's talk a bit about IP addresses, because so far we've used only the public IP address, right? We need to understand a bit more about IP addresses. All right. So in the server, you can see here, right? In the server, this is a server, and we've used the public IP address to SSH into the server, and we also, connected to this IP address on port 80 to look at our WordPress site, right? And also, this is the IP address we have mapped to our domain, right? But the problem with this IP address is that if you restart the server, right? If you restart the server, or rather, if you stop the server, this IP address goes away. Okay, the IP address goes away, and why does it go away? Because these are IPv4 addresses, which are scarce. Okay, the world is running out of these IP addresses, and if you stop your server, AWS assumes that you're not using the server, and it can't have a precious resource like this IP address just lying idle. Okay, so it takes away your IP address and gives it to somebody else. All right. So then what happens? Now, if you restart your server, right, a new IP address is issued. All right. And then this mapping that you did, the mapping between your domain name and your IP address is no longer valid, right? So when a user goes to your site, they will see something like this, right? They'll see something like this because the IP address has changed, right? The old IP address is no longer valid, right? Or worse, the IP address, the other IP address, the old IP address is being used by somebody else. So your domain may be pointing to somebody else's website. That's even worse. All right. Okay. So that's a problem with with public IP addresses. And what we do to sort of fix that is we use something called elastic IP addresses. All right. We use elastic IP addresses. So what's the difference between these two? So the public IP, like I said, it gets assigned to your instance, but it can change, right? It can change when you restart your server. All right. The elastic IP is more permanent, and it is assigned to your account, to your AWS account, right? And it stays with you, until you release it, right? So you can keep it with you forever, right? And it's yours forever unless you yourself want to give it back. All right. And the other thing about elastic IP is that you can move it. You can attach an elastic IP to a server, right? Later, let's say there's a failover you want to do, right? You want to go to another server. So you can detach the elastic IP from the first server and attach it to another server, right? And this way you can fail over to a secondary server, right? So the elastic IP is permanent, assigned to your account, right? And it can be moved from one server to the other. All right. So the characteristics of elastic IP are such that you must always use elastic IP addresses in your DNS records. Okay, DNS records, it's not wise to change the DNS records again and again, because it takes time to propagate the DNS records, right? So it should be something permanent, and that's why in your DNS records, always use the elastic IP address and never use the public IP address. Okay, if you use the public IP address, it will work for a while, right? But it's a ticking time bomb. Okay, sooner or later your site will stop working. All right. Okay. So the question is, how do we, get an elastic IP address? So what you do is go to elastic IPs in the menu on the left side, right, and allocate. First step is to allocate a new address, right? So this is basically an IP address is given to your account when you allocate, right? Nothing happens here. It's just that you get an IP address. All right. Now you need to associate. Okay, now you need to associate. So I think now we have two servers. Let's make sure this is 16. So this is the newer one. I want to use this one, right? This is Trusty 14.04. The number is 8577. Okay. So now we want to associate this IP address with our server, right? So from the actions you say associate, right? And you can select your server, right? So now we associate the elastic IP with the server. That's done. Now if you go back to your instance, right? Now if you go back to your instance, you can now see that there is an elastic IP available now, right? This is the elastic IP. Okay. At the same time, you'll notice that the old public address has gone away, right, and has been replaced by this elastic IP, because the elastic IP is also public IP, right? And since you have an elastic IP, there's no need for a separate public IP. Okay, so that's why now we are left with just the elastic IP. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to make sure that our domain record set has the elastic IP, not a public IP address. Right? So let me make this change and save this. Right now it's better. Now it's better, and hopefully this will work for me as well now. Okay, so I think I have the same caching issue, but you can try this once again and make sure that your WordPress site is functioning. All right. Okay, folks. So now let me stop here. Let me stop here. You might have lots of questions. Let's go through these. All right. Okay. So. Yeah, I think some of you are saying it's working for you, right? So so this time it should work with an elastic IP, right? So we should verify that, and I think one of you at least is saying that it's working for you. Okay, all right. Let's assume this will work, right? Let's assume this will work. Okay, let's go to Q&A. Okay. Ashok, so we need a step-by-step, right? It's confusing. Yeah, so I think what you should do is use this one, right? Use this one. Use this one. Okay, if you choose Ubuntu 14.04, then use this one. This is a single tutorial which has everything. Okay, just make sure that you choose Ubuntu 14.04. It's also called Trusty. This is the brand name. Okay, so if you choose this this Ubuntu version, then that tutorial that I've just given you should be a single tutorial. Okay, so and also, you know, it's not about installing WordPress right, as much as understanding how to use EC2. right? So instead of WordPress, you might want to go and install your own application, right? You might be working on an application today in your as part of your project. So I think that's more important, right? And but yeah, if you want to learn Linux, if you want to learn WordPress installation, feel free. There are many other tutorials as well, by the way, right? And we'll find step-by-step guides easily available. Okay, all right. Okay, now this question here: do you have to pay for creating an elastic IP? No, but you do pay if you don't use the IP. Okay, why? Because IPv4 addresses are scarce. Okay, and AWS does not want you to hoard IP addresses. Okay, all right. So it's free of cost as long as you use elastic IPs. Okay, all right. Gajendra, since majority of people in this course are using Windows Server, step by step should be followed. Windows Server, yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if a majority of people use Windows Server, right? I don't know. And also, look, it's about getting the big picture. And it's about getting the big picture. This is a solutions architect course, right? We're not doing system administration here too much, although it's important to look at the steps just to get a better understanding, right? Now, the lab that is available does work, right? And it seems to be a recent problem with the Army, right? And like I said, just try it with a different Windows Army, and let's see what happens. All right. Follow instructions along with tutor. That won't be possible. Okay, that we need too much time. Okay, we'll need too much time if we have to sort of do an installation step by step with the students following the tutor. Right, that would take too much time. Okay, that's not the objective of this. That's not the objective of this course. Okay. All right. All right. I'll wait for other questions as well. I think it's more important to get the conceptual side of things, right? And the step-by-step guides, etc. You have to struggle through these things a bit. All right, it helps if you get a step-by-step guide which is too simple, then you don't absorb it. You don't learn as well. Compared to when you sort of try things on your own, right? Fail a few times, right? So I think it's better if you sort of do it yourself to some extent. All right. Okay. Next question, Balan. When you say EIP is to be used, does it mean it has to be linked to a domain name? No, it has to be. It has to be attached. It has to be attached to an EC2 instance. Okay. So it has to be what is called associated. Right? The correct word is associated to an EC2 instance. Okay, that's what it means when we that's what I mean when we say it has to be used. All right. Okay. Can you share the email IDs? Yeah. So you can do something like this. All right. Or some people may not be comfortable sharing email IDs. So what you can do is you can use forums. Right. You can use forums. You can use Edureka's forums maybe. All right. Or yeah, you can share email IDs as well. Or share email IDs if you want to. Okay, so if you want to. So in fact, let me create another sheet here. And you guys can discuss this. So all right, so you can maybe enter your details here and see if you want to collaborate on some of this. Okay. Okay, Rao. So in reality, we always use EIP. Is this right? Actually, no. Okay. So what happens is when we use load balancers, right? There's no need for EIPs. Okay, EIPs are okay for small environments, right? When you have a single server, let's say, right? Small environments, example, single server environment, right? So here it's okay, but when we use load balancers, there's no need for EIPs because the load balancer has an endpoint. That's what we use. Okay, so instead we use ELBs endpoints. Not, yeah, okay, not Elastic Beanstalk. ELB is the load balancer, Elastic Load Balancer. Let me expand this. Okay, Chandra, do we have? Okay, yeah, okay. So I think you were responding to this question. So do we have AWS services to automate the application deployment? Yes, yes. There are many services. Okay, so for example, one of you has said Beanstalk, Elastic Beanstalk. That's true. That can be used. There's also CloudFormation. There's also CloudFormation. All right. There's also Upsworks, which is kind of a chef. You might have heard of Chef and Puppet, right? So Upsworks incorporates chef recipes. So that's these are three options. There's also others. You know, there's code deploy, this code pipeline. There are many services. We'll talk about these things in upcoming modules. All right. But also remember, you know, you don't have to have. You can also have an army with WordPress pre-installed, right? So you actually don't have to, you know, you don't have to install WordPress the way I did actually, okay? Because you have armies, you know, you simply select an army which has WordPress already installed. That's possible, okay? You can have army with LAMP, you know, MySQL, PHP, Apache already installed, right? This is the easiest way. Right? You should not be installing things manually unless it's your own custom application with your own dependencies, right? You can easily go and find an army which has all the software that you need, right? So Beanstalk, CloudFormation, etc. are sort of higher level services, but you know, to start with, just choose an army which has WordPress. That's an even easier way. All right. Next question, Virendra, unable to connect to Ubuntu Windows for the second time. For the second time after turning off the instances, we're receiving another public IP. Is EIP the solution for this? Yeah, but you know, what's the problem? You can easily specify the new public IP, right? So just use the new public IP, right? Just use the new public IP. What's the problem in this, right? EIPs, remember, you know, are limited. Right? They are limited. No, the DNS name you cannot use, okay, because the public IP changes, the DNS also changes, right? But EIPs are limited, okay, and you don't want them orphaned, right? Because there'll be a cost, okay. So they are limited and can have a cost, if you don't associate, right? So EIPs, be careful, right? Be careful with using them. Yes, it can be a solution, but also, you know, you can easily use the new public IP address, right? So you can do that as well. Also, remember, you know, you've not explained why you're stopping the servers and starting them, right? So why are you stopping and starting the server? It'll be interesting to know what you're doing. All right. So why are you stopping and starting the server? Do you know that, you know, it might be better to terminate the server, right? No need to stop a server, right? No need to stop a server, just terminate it, okay? And you can always recreate the server at a later time using an army, right? Recreate a server using an army later, okay? So this is cheaper. This is cheaper. Don't stop your server, right, to start it later. Just terminate it and start it later using an army. All right. Okay. Uh, Rama, what are the different things to keep in mind while creating the load balancers? That's a broad question, right? That's a broad question. We'll come to this because we'll talk about this in module 6, right? So it's a little bit early, and it's a very broad question. So let's come back to this later. All right. AWS pre-built armies like LAMP. Do they provide user guides? User guide for what, right? User guide is not required. Why is it required? Because the software is already installed. Right? So why do you need the user guide? So here, when you launch an instance, right, you can choose. So for example, let's look for WordPress, right? I haven't done this before, but let's say we look for WordPress. Yeah, so you can see someone has created an army, right? So you can select this and you'll have WordPress already installed. All right, or maybe you want a LAMP stack, right? So Apache, MySQL, PHP. You can see there's a LAMP stack on Ubuntu, right? Various flavors of Ubuntu, 14.4 as well. LAMP stack is available, right? So just select this and move forward from there, right? LAMP is already installed. You can install other software on top of it. Okay, all right. Shyam, can we try creating an army out of this WordPress and later create a new instance out of it? Of course, yes. This is what you have to do. This is what you will be doing with your apps, with your own applications and servers, right? All the time, right? This is the most common thing that you'll be doing. Okay, you must create an army once you take a server, deploy your application. Once you've tested it, right, you must create an army out of it, right? And then that army can be used to create servers hundreds of times, right? No need to repeat the installation. Okay, see, that's why when in one of the previous questions, right, you said you want to follow one step by step. I don't think these things are important, right? They're not important anymore because you just need an image, right? You just need an image, and then you can create your servers quite easily, right? Step-by-step installation of software is not so important, all right? I just wanted to show it to you so that I wanted to show it to you from scratch so that you get a better sense of what EC2 is, right? But step-by-step installations are no longer important because you just use armies. All right. Yeah. So this question, Babita, when you're not using, you should stop the server and start when you want. If you terminate, you'll have to install everything again. So are you saying that you terminate and create your own image and use that for creating the instance? Yes. Okay. Terminate and use an army to recreate your servers later. This is the best. Okay, because stopping a server saves you some cost, but you will keep paying for storage. All right, so stopping doesn't stop all the cost, right? So you keep paying for storage, the EBS volume basically. So it's better to create an army and use that. Okay, all right. How do you do it? Very simple. How do you do it? Very simple. So let's say this is our server, right? This is our WordPress server here. Okay, so you go and say create army, create image, all right, and just give it a name, my WordPress army. All right, just give it a name, create an image, right? So this will be an exact image of what you have on your server, everything, right? The installation, the software installation, the WordPress deployment, the configuration files, everything that is on the server will be baked into the army. All right, so you can find the army in the armies section here, right? And you can see it's coming up. It'll take a bit of time to get ready. All right, Once it is ready, just select the army and click on launch, right? And then you can, once this new server comes up, you'll have the exact same installation as the first server, right? It will be an exact clone of the first server. Okay, that's it. Okay, Subhani, if I create my own army, where do I have to store it, or will I have to pay for storing my own custom army? Yes, you will pay a bit, very small, right? You will pay a bit for storage, because what happens is an army is backed by an EBS snapshot. Okay, we'll talk about EBS later, but there is a EBS snapshot that comes along with the army, right? So here we've created an army, right? We just created an army. So this army is actually backed by an EBS snapshot, right? Which has also been created. So you'll be paying, in this case, 8 GB worth of snapshot cost. It's a very small cost, right? It's a very small cost, but you'll be paying for that, yes. Okay, Udaya, can we migrate an existing server without an army? Is that possible? Yeah, you can import, you can convert a VMware image, into an army. This is one way. This is one way of doing it, right? Right. This is one way of doing it. Otherwise, or you set up a server from scratch on EC2. So you can set up your server and application from scratch, right? And then create an army out of it. Okay, so it's not a problem. All right. Renju, if I terminate the instance, all the WordPress data will be lost along with the instance. What's the solution to keep the data intact? Yeah, so the solution is, there are two solutions. Okay, one solution is take an EBS snapshot. All right, so your volume, your data volume is snapshotted, and you can then use that to create a volume later and attach it to your server, right? The other solution is create an army. Right, so in the army, everything, right, all your software configuration, data, database, everything will be baked into the army, right? And later you can create an army create a server from this army. Okay, create a server from this army later. Okay, this will be an exact clone, including the data. All right, and here you can create an EBS volume later and attach to any EC2 instance. These are the two solutions for snapshotting. Okay. Okay. Sashi, so if any compliance say that, please put your server back to your existing location from another location. No, when you say location, what do you mean, right? What do you mean by location? Just explain that better, right? Location, what do you mean by that? I'm talking about AWS regions, for example, right? Just explain that. Okay. All right, folks. So Shyam, can I have two EC2 instances where one has MySQL and the other has application? Can we link these two instances? Does this happen in real time? Of course, of course. This is common, right? It's common. So normally you'll have n-tier applications, right? So you'll have a web server tier, right? You'll have an app server tier, right? You'll have a DB server tier, right? So this is very, very common, okay? DB server tier. Okay, you can also have many servers. You can have 100 web servers. You can have 1,000 web servers. You can have, again, the same thing, many app servers. Right? You'll have a load balancer sitting in front of them. So these are common things. Right? We'll cover this in module 6. I'm sorry. Right? More in module 6. Very, very simple. Very simple. Normally the database, you may want to have in RDS, right? Normally the database will be in RDS. All right. Okay. I think what we'll do is we'll let me show you that question that you asked. How do we set up a user account on an EC2 instance, right? So let's try and do that one. We have 10 more minutes. Um, Yeah, but are you talking about AWS regions, or are you talking about your own on-premises servers, right? So are you talking about on-premises or AWS? I guess you're talking about AWS regions, right? So if you're talking about AWS regions, you can copy an army from one region to another. All right, that's easy. That's easy. So all you have to do is, this is your army, right? This is your army, right? So you can go to actions and you can say copy, and you can specify the other region where you want to copy this army, right? So you can easily do it. Just copy it to the other region and go into that other region and use that army, use the copy of that army to create a server. Okay, so easy. You can easily move a server from, say, US East to Singapore. Easy. Yeah. So just copy an army from one region to the other, and then in the other region, in the other region, in the other region, uh, use that army, use the new army to create a server. Right? It's very simple. No problem. Same thing can be done for DR, disaster recovery type of things, etc. Right? So it's very simple. All right. Okay. So now let's. All right, so here user guide is not required. Software is already installed. For user IDs and passwords used while installation, uh, okay, yeah. So this is a valid question. So for example, if MySQL is installed if MySQL is installed on the server, what's the root password? Right? I think that's a valid question. So here you can look at the documentation provided by the Army maker, right? So the Army creator will provide documentation. Okay, for example, there's a company called Bitnami, right? Bitnami. This creates this company creates lots of armies for AWS, right? So Bitnami will have the documentation for that army. Okay, so it's a good question. It's a very good question, right? And yes, the answer is the army maker, right? Whoever is publishing the army will have documentation. All right. Okay, folks. So now I think what we'll do is let's just review where we are. Right? Let's just review where we are a bit, and then we'll discuss that question of installing user accounts. Okay, so this completes EC2. Okay, this completes EC2, and mainly you should understand armies very well, right? You should understand security groups very well, key pairs. You should know PuTTY, right? How to connect using PuTTY. You should know RDP if you want to use Windows servers, right? These things you should know, and you should know the difference between elastic IP and public IP, right? And also sometimes you may need to use a private IP, right? Remember, the EC2 instance has a private IP, right? We haven't talked about this, but the private IP is always available. It's static. It doesn't change, right? It doesn't change when the server restarts, and you should use the private IP when you're trying to make two servers talk to each other, right? So let's say you have one server with the database, another server with the application, right? So the application can talk to the database server using the private IP, all right? You should always use the private IP for these types of situations because, right, let's say by mistake you use the public IP address of the database server, right? So what will happen is the traffic will go outside to the internet and come back in, all right? So that will cause your application will be slow, right? You'll also bear some additional network cost. So avoid that, right? So remember, private IP to be used when two servers are talking to each other. All right, public IP or elastic IP has to be used when the communication is from the outside to the server, right? But between servers, you should always use private IPs. All right. Okay. So these things you should understand. We haven't covered a few topics like ENI. That's fine. Not so important at this stage. But these topics you should know, right? And then you should also go ahead and launch your EC2 instances, set up your applications, and try these out, right? So that's very important. Okay. Now from tomorrow we'll start module 3, right? Module 3 is a big module. We have 5 services to cover, and here we'll need to especially we'll need to look at EBS and S3, all right, EBS and S3. So you should, like I said last time, go to AWS and read up, right? Read up on S3 and EBS. You can find them in the products page, right? S3 and EBS. Okay, these are very important. We'll also talk about Glacier, storage gateway, Snowball, etc. Right? But these two are extremely important. So please try and read up on these two topics. Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll probably spend Thursday and Friday both on this module, and then on Monday we'll do VPCs. Okay. So all right. So let me answer these two as well, and then we'll look at that demonstration. So Udaya, if you create an army with EC2, do we need to create a key pair again, or the existing key pair will work for the army which we created? Yeah. So no, you don't have to create a key pair. Okay. So everything is baked into the army, right? Whatever was on the server, right? So including the key pair, right? So nothing has to be done. Everything is baked into the army. You can change, by the way, you can change the key pair if you like when launching the instance. Okay, you can. Basically, what you have to do is when launching the new instance, right? You can specify the same key pair for the new instance, right? Or you can also create a new key pair if you like, right? Or create a new key pair if you like. Okay, but remember what I'm saying is everything is baked into the army, including the key pair. This is if you have created your own users with their own key pairs, right? Okay, so this is there. All right, and can we attach EBS volume to another EC2 instance, or is it region specific or independent? So no, so the EBS volume can be detached from an instance and attached to another instance in the same AZ, and of course that means the same region, right? So in the same AZ only. Okay, you can't move an EBS volume to another AZ or to another region. All right, you can create a snapshot, you can create a copy of the volume, but the same volume cannot be attached to an instance outside the same AZ. All right. Okay, folks. So now coming back to this question, right? This question. Yeah, this question, Shyam, right? So this will take a bit of time. All right, this will take a bit of time. So let me go ahead and do it. And those of you who want to hang around can do that. If you want to leave, you can do that, right? Because this will take a bit of time. So let's take a look at how to set up a user account on a Linux server, right? And for that user account, how do we set up a key pair? All right. So this is what I'm going to show you now. Okay. So let's say. So let's say, this is our server, right? This is our Ubuntu server, and we are now connecting to the server in this fashion. right? And then we connect to the public IP address, right? So we connect in this fashion, right? So here we are using the Ubuntu user and Ubuntu's key pair, right? Now let's say what we want to do is we want to create our own users, which is what you should be doing, right? Which is what you should be doing. So let me exit the server, and what I want to do is, instead of this, I want to use my own user accounts, right? And my own key pairs, which means for each user have my own key pair, right? So how will you do this? So what we do first is first we have to create a key pair, right? So we create a key pair, and let's say you can use a program called SSH keygen. Right? This is a program you'll find on Mac or Linux, right? So we create use this program and create a key pair, something like this. All right, and you can specify a name for this key pair. Let's say it is my key pair, right? So my, or let's say it's a developer's key pair. So let's say developer number 1, right? This is the key pair. Okay, let's say developer 1 is a real person, right? So we create a key pair for this person. All right. So the key pair has been created. Let's take a look at this. You can see there are two. It's a key pair, right? This is the private key. This is the public key, right? You can take a look at this key as well. This is the private key, all right, and this is the public key. All right. So now we have a key pair. It's just a key pair that we have. Nothing has happened yet, right? We can't use this. So what we need to do next is we need to connect to the server, create a user account for this developer 1, right? And on the server, install the public key. All right, so that's what we need to do. So let me connect to the server now. All right, let me connect to the server now, and I'm going to create a user account for this developer 1. Right, so now we are on the server. All right, now we are on the server, and what we want to do here is we want to add a user using the add user command, right? Let's say this username is developer 1. Normally you should use a real name. Okay, so we add this user. All right, so the user has been added on the server, right? This is Linux user administration. We are adding a server. We have created an account for this developer 1. All right, okay. Next, what we do is we need to install the public key, right? We need to install the public key. So what we do is we do a switch user. So we switch user. We switch to this developer 1 user. All right, so now you can see we have switched to this user on the server, right? We are logged in now as developer 1. All right, okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder called .ssh. .ssh. Dot means hidden, right? Dot means hidden. So normally you do it in this kind of folder. You can secure the folder using a chmod command. All right. In this folder, we create a file called authorized keys. All right, and in this file, we paste the public key. Okay, we paste the public key in this file. So let me find this. This is my machine, right? I'm going to look at the public key. I'll copy the public key here from my machine where I generated the key pair, right? And on the server, paste it in the authorized keys file. All right. So this is how we do it, right? So we first create a user account on the server. Then for that user, we create an authorized keys file in this .ssh folder, and then we paste the public key there. Okay, so that's it. Now the server work is done, right? The server work is done. Now we can connect. All right, now we can connect to the server using this user's account. So here we'll say developer. Okay, let me exit out of the server. All right. So now what we're going to do is, instead of using the Ubuntu user, we'll use the developer one user account, right? And also we have to use the right private key, right? So we'll use the developer one private key. Okay, this is how you can connect to the server. Now this may not work because of permissions, or okay, it has worked, right? It has worked. You can see if you say who am I, you have now connected as the developer one user, right? You can also do a PWT. You can see you're in the home directory of this user, right? So this is how you do it. Basically, the steps are, right? Let me summarize the steps. I hope you've got it, right? Let me summarize the steps. So what you do is create an account for a user. Example, let's say Shyam, right? Shyam is a user. So create an account for this user on the server. Okay, and the command is sudo user add Shyam. All right, this is how you create an account. Then create a file dot, basically in the home directory of the user, dot ssh dot authorized keys, right? Paste the public key in this file, right? Okay, before this you have to create a key pair, right? So before this you have to create a key pair. Create a key pair using the SSH keygen, right? So the command is SSH keygen -t RSA. All right. Then paste the public key in this file, and then connect using this user account, right? So basically you connect by saying SSH-i developer one. This is the private key. Developer one is the user account, and this is the public key. Right? Okay. Broadly, this is the process. You'll find lots of documentation on this process. It's not AWS specific, right? It's a Linux administration thing. You'll find lots of information on this. All right. Okay. Okay. Okay, folks. So I think that's it, right? I think that's it for today. Let's end this session, and I'll see you tomorrow for the storage module number 3. All right. Have a good day. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.